Okay, so when you hear the word Watergate, what comes to mind? Probably a bungled break-in, a cover-up, a president resigning, you know the drill. But what if I told you that 50 years later, the story we all think we know, well, it misses the most important part.
What if the real scandal, the part that really echoes today, wasn't about the burglary at all? What if it was about what paid for it? That's the question we're going to dig into right now. You see, behind that break-in, there was this, a secret, totally unregulated slush fund. This was the money, the fuel that powered the entire scandal. We're talking huge amounts of cash from corporations and super wealthy donors. And it wasn't just for the burglary. It was for a whole menu of dirty tricks. This, right here, is where the real story starts.
So who was spending all this cash? Well, it was the Committee to Re-elect the President, which, believe it or not, quickly earned the very unfortunate acronym CREEP. This was Nixon's official 1972 campaign, and let's just say they were playing political hardball, using that money for sabotage and all sorts of illegal moves against their opponents. And the whole thing unraveled over 2 really dramatic years. It all kicks off in June of '72 with the burglars getting caught. Fast forward a year, and the whole country is glued to their TVs watching the Senate hearings. By July '74, it's a full-on constitutional crisis when the Supreme Court orders Nixon to hand over his secret tapes. And then, bam, just a month later, it's over. Nixon resigns. So how on earth did we get from a, quote, third-rate burglary to a president resigning? A huge piece of the puzzle is this guy, the legendary source known only as Deep Throat. For more than 30 years, his identity was one of the biggest secrets in American politics. Then, in 2005, Mark Felt, the former number 2 at the FBI, finally revealed it was him all along. And this is where the story starts to feel like a spy movie. I mean, their communication was pure cloak and dagger stuff. To signal a meeting, Woodward would move a flower pot on his balcony. Felt would then respond by circling a page number in Woodward's copy of the New York Times, which would signal the time. And their meetings, they happened at 2 in the morning, deep inside a parking garage. You can't make this stuff up. As the investigation got closer and closer to the White House, it uncovered a brand new mystery, all wrapped up in this one number, 18.5. That number stands for 18.5 minutes of missing audio. And this wasn't just any tape. It was a recording of President Nixon himself talking with his chief of staff, H.R. Haldeman, just 3 days after the break-in. What was said in that gap? To this day, it's one of Watergate's biggest unanswered questions. The official explanation was, well, let's just say it was a little hard to believe. Nixon's loyal secretary, Rosemary Woods, said she accidentally erased it. She even demonstrated for photographers how she might have kept her foot on a pedal while stretching for a phone in a pose so awkward it was immediately nicknamed the Rosemary Stretch. But there was one tape that couldn't be erased. They called it the smoking gun. And this was the one. Recorded just a few days after the break-in, you can hear Nixon himself planning with Haldeman to use the CIA to tell the FBI to back off its investigation, citing phony national security reasons. It was direct, undeniable proof that he was in on the cover-up. At that point, the game was up. But, not everyone sees Watergate as this huge, masterful plot to take down democracy. There's a revisionist view that argues it was less of a conspiracy and more of a panicked, clumsy mistake. This take suggests they were just guys who wandered into a mess and then, illegally, tried to cover their own backs. It's a really different way of looking at the same set of facts. The scandal was so huge, it forced this moment of national reckoning. And the focus of that reckoning wasn't just about the president's abuse of power. It was about the corrupting influence of money in our politics, and that led to some massive reforms. Congress moved fast, and they passed these historic reforms that basically rewired the whole system of campaign finance. They slapped on tight new limits for contributions, demanded way stricter disclosure so you could see where the money was coming from, and created the Federal Election Commission, the FEC, to enforce the new rules. And, this is key, they set up a public financing system for presidential elections. And the impact? It was stunning. Get this. Ronald Reagan, one of the best fundraisers in modern political history, won a massive landslide re-election in 1984 without holding a single fundraiser. The public financing system worked so well, he just didn't need to. It was a completely different world. So for a while, the system actually worked, but it didn't last. That hard-won fix started to come apart, and big money came roaring back. Just look at the difference here. The post-Watergate system had public financing, strict limits, and you had to disclose your donors. Today, it's dominated by private money, you have super PACs that can spend unlimited amounts, and you've got the rise of dark money, where you have no idea who the secret donors are. I mean, it is night and day.
And the sheer scale of the money now is just mind-boggling. In the 2022 midterms alone, the top 100 donors, just 100 people, spent over $1.2 billion. That is more than the millions of small donors combined. Think about that. 100 people outspent millions of their fellow citizens.
So how did we end up back here? It basically happened in 3 steps. First, you had Supreme Court decisions, the most famous one being Citizens United, that just blew the doors wide open for unlimited spending. Second, Congress didn't do anything to fix the laws after the courts acted. And third, the very agency that was created to be the watchdog, the FEC, just got gridlocked and became pretty much powerless. So here's the bottom line. 50 years after a scandal that was all about a secret slush fund, we've basically come full circle. As the Brennan Center for Justice puts it, our campaign finance system today looks disturbingly similar to the one that made Watergate possible in the first place.
And all of this brings us to the big debate about what Watergate even means today. After all this time, what are we supposed to have learned from it? Turns out, people really don't agree.
On one side, you have what's called the reformist view. These folks argue that Watergate was, at its core, a giant warning sign about what happens when you let unregulated money poison politics. For them, the lesson is simple. We learned it once, we've completely forgotten it, and we desperately need to relearn it fast. But then you have the revisionist view, which argues the exact opposite. This take from Commentary magazine says the importance of the scandal has been completely overblown. They see it as kind of a boring, one-off crime that, yeah, had big political fallout, but doesn't really offer any deep, lasting lessons for us today. And some critics go even further, completely flipping the script. This quote, for example, frames the investigation, not the actual crimes, as the real danger, calling it a reign of media and government terror. From that perspective, the cure was actually worse than the disease. So, 50 years on, what do you think? What's the real takeaway? Was Watergate ultimately a timeless lesson about the abuse of presidential power, or was its most important lesson about something else? Something that's maybe even more relevant today? The corrosive, unstoppable power of money in American politics. That's the question the scandal still forces us to ask.